Hello and welcome to another episode of my Let's Play of World of Tanks. I'm Darkling as always, and that hasn't changed yet. So, I wanted to talk a bit about how to improve your odds of winning a game once you're in the game. Not like, sitting here looking, oh look, I have a 60% win chance here, but more along the lines of just coming in here blind, not being able to see who's what on the team, but more or less being like, okay, here's what I have available to me in terms of the team, here's where people are going, here's what I should do, or here's who I should contact. Well, first off, the best thing you can do is platoon with people. If you're platooned and working together, you actually greatly increase your chances of winning a game, no matter what, simply for the fact that you have teamwork going on, and it's actually communication, whereas if I'm just playing with random people by myself, it's kind of a shot in the dark because I really can't guarantee anything here. But as you can see, I actually have myself, Gilly, and Jake Logan all in the same platoon, along with X, Aztec, and I believe that was it from their platoon. So we have 5 people all on the same communications, all working together. And that's going to make a great bit of difference over a team that is not platooned at all, or just a handful of platoons, but they aren't even communicating. So use the in-game communication if you can, or an external one such as TeamSpeak, Ventrilo, or Skype, whichever. Anything that you can in order to discuss potential strategies, what's going on. Hopefully one of you can call for help if you need it, or be able to point at certain targets, or who you're targeting, so on and so forth. But working together is certainly the most clutch thing you can possibly do, and especially if you're actually platooning with people, you can organize things even better than just being like, hey, you guys go here, you guys go there. So, with that being said, it's probably the best thing you can do. Now, without the option of that, there are a few other things you can do. Yes, I'm shooting an AFK T110 here. Another thing that you can do is to find like tanks and run with those like tanks. If you see a group of like 2 or 3 mediums heading off to go in Wolfpack, go with them, because the simple fact that you are now with similar tanks and each of you combining your fire, it certainly is devastating, and most people will actually back away from something like that because it's such a giant threat, such as any sort of tank destroyer or SPG, or even heavies. If anything's caught on their own, they're in trouble. Or in low groups, such as 2 people, they're going to get overrun because they cannot keep up with that sort of amount of people. Now, in addition to the fact of running together, or at least attempting to find a group and trying to follow them, of course announce that that's what you're going to do so that everyone can kind of keep an eye on each other, is to combine fire. You want to mark your targets, or at least call out, hey, let's hit this guy. Hey, this guy's facing his side this way or the other way. So let's go ahead and target this one individual, or in the case of like a group of mediums, hey, I'll run around behind this guy to stop him, so this way you guys can all get on his sides. Stuff like that. If you want to work together, kind of pin them in, you're able to actually stop them from being able to retaliate, and really just encircle the person and force them to be unable to cope against you guys. And that alone is absolutely devastating, and not a lot of things can help counter that. So running in like groups together, if your mediums go hunting together, if your heavies all push a flank together, but of course you do have to have some sort of a spread of forces. You can't send everybody in just one flank and hope for a win. While it is possible that you can completely outflank them, anyone who did go to the opposite flank is going to be hard-pressed to hold anybody until you can actually get that assault off. So, what you can do is kind of see where everything's going. You kind of divide out, let one group of heavies go one way, one group of mediums go another, and then kind of filter out the best you can. But definitely, the main things here, platoon together, communicate, follow others of similar type and assist as you can, as best you can, and additionally, you want to all target and completely alpha strike the same target. Now, alpha strike is the initial bombardment of all your firepower at the same time. That way you're either completely destroying them all in the same shot, or you're going to so heavily devastate them that they don't know what to do when they are stuck facing all 2, 3, 4 more tanks. So if you can coordinate that sort of an attack, it is excellent. But if you can't, you can't. It's understandable. You just do whatever it is you can to try and push all together and do whatever type of damage you can. And of course, working together. So the key thing to improving your chances is not running the better tank. It's knowing how to work together with your team, running with people you can actually communicate with and work with, so that way you all can coordinate your strikes, your targets, your reloads. Any sort of negatives can be countered by the help of your buddies. So if you're going to get rushed on by like a T-110 that you know you can't penetrate from the front, one of you keeps them tracked while the other one might have a lower angle and is able to hit the underside. Or you keep him tracked while everyone just circles around him and he can't swing his turret if it's a heavier tank like a T-30. So, simple tricks like these can actually really benefit the team, really give you a better chance of winning, even if it looks like the odds are stacked against you. And hey, that's what all the good players actually do, is they work together. There's no possible way one player, typically I should say, one player can turn the tides of battle by himself or herself in such a gigantic force where one tank can take on 3, 4, 5 tanks by themselves. It's rare, it's possible, especially if they go send one at a time at you, but if that's the case, if those remaining tanks are all grouped up and there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them and they all push onto that one tank, there's no way that one tank will be able to kill all of them and that victory will easily happen. Because in previous battles you've seen in my KV3, back when it was a tier 6, I was able to take on 7 or 8 people by myself, but they sent them one at a time at me. Had they all attacked at the same time, I would have not been able to do such a thing. So, all those tips can hopefully bring you to have a better chance of winning, despite what XVM might show you, despite what anyone might say, and give you that little edge that you need so that your group or platoon can actually win the game, like mine, how we just have 6 kills between us. Such things are easily possible when you work and communicate together. So let's move on to something else. Now that I've talked about how to work together with your team in order to increase your chances of victory, let's talk about how to look at the map and how to use the map to your advantage to improving your chances at a victory. Now you really need to play a lot to kind of figure out the ins and outs of the maps, kind of know the different routes. You'll eventually learn where most tanks end up traveling. And of course there's a whole little bit about having a good scout who can go out, spot, and give you that initial assessment as to where people are heading that allows you to react accordingly. So right now I'm going to talk about reaction and of course using the map to your advantage. Now, I've played this map hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, so I know this map in and out. I know every little nook and cranny that's useful to me. I know where I can hide, I know where I can snipe, I know the majority of things just sheerly from playing it so many times. Now, as you see here, we've had to split our platoon up just for the simple fact that not a lot of people went and defended certain areas, so we admittedly knew that we were going to have to split ourselves up. We have one tank down in the south, or one tank over here at the choke point, myself heading to the center choke point, and I had chosen to go here as opposed to around the mountain because of the simple fact I saw 2 heavies over here, and I didn't want to overstack that area when I knew that a major heavy had to be placed in the center area to prevent the other team from really doing a whole heck of a lot. So, with that said, we end up having to use our scouts a bit here, at least Kurgan, our main scout in the T6 or Type 62 here, to try and get a few spots, but he didn't really succeed. Now, I take up a nice sniping position as we have not really found anybody yet. So until I know where anybody is, I need to play it safe because I don't want to push myself out in the front lines and getting myself killed when I know that I'm going to be probably the biggest asset to the team. I don't want to say laying in wait, but holding myself slightly in reserve to assist all the mediums and the middle tier tanks. They need to be on the front lines, whereas my heavy tank and the top tank need to sit kind of right behind them so that not only am I still doing damage, but I'm able to assist them, let them both of us whittle down the enemy team, them take the majority of hits, so that later in the game, it's sad to say, but later in the game, I could still be at full strength when we do need to have that one or two people be the strong, super hitting force needing to take out a bunch of really damaged tanks. So I come over here with which to use the terrain to my advantage to cross-snipe some things, in addition to the fact that this way I can get some eyes down further, and I can also hit their weak spots. I know there's one artillery piece, but I'm going to have to risk it here so that I can get cross shots onto this T-34 and this KV-1S, because those are their two heavy tanks. And if I can get cross shots at them, see, they're busy looking at other things, I can actually do a whole lot to their team while being safe. Now, I'm kind of exposing myself at this point and not really taking advantage of things, but I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm able to push a flank on them, causing them to be pincered between myself and our main force. And they're getting hit left and right, and it really is making a big difference because they're unable to react to both of us. They have to focus on one or the other. So, as soon as I can clear these guys out, I can then readjust to help out anything else, like the flank that's collapsing around the mountain. Now, sadly, a miss here might cost me a few seconds, but it gives me time to just wind in, wait a second, and go ahead and fire that winning shot that I need to take him out, and I can then now go readjust. Sadly, their artillery still is active, and I'm not really able to do too much to it yet, but one of the trade-offs is I still have a very active scout sitting in the back waiting, and he's actually doing a heavy bit of damage to the tanks in that tier. So I'm going to have him eventually swap with me, since I can actually get back and defend against these tanks. He would actually be better off arty hunting if I can convince him to. Sadly, I don't remember what happens at this point in time. But a big thing is knowing how to use the different avenues of the map to get either behind forces or get around their main flanks so that you're not having to deal with either just turrets being exposed or just certain little portions here and there being excused. See, now I convinced him to go hunt the artillery, which is exactly what I need. He'll be able to go take that thing out, and thus making it near impossible to really damage me and take me out. Now, I've foregone that whole top area because I know that our T-34 plus our artillery should have no problem taking out their heavily damaged T-34. I could probably push down and take care of these tanks, but instead I actually find that their AMX is coming back to rescue them. So since I did exactly what I said, which was kind of hang back a bit, lend shots here and there, and then push a flank, I'm able to take him on with full hit points, whereas he's already well past half damage, and it is much more easy for me to deal with than going toe-to-toe and relying on just straight-up toe-to-toe, one-on-one skill. I'm able to actually go against him, not have to worry too much about making mistakes or having to worry about taking unnecessary hits or just lucky hits on him and lucky deflects on my own part against him. So, with that being the case, a lot of it is also knowing what features of terrain are going to get you to the areas the fastest. Clearly, when there were people on the hill here sniping out towards our base, I knew that this area was completely open. So I was better off just running through that area and getting behind them where I knew they couldn't deal with both of us, because either they'd turn to face me and expose their rear to the majority of our tanks, or they would continue facing dead ahead at the majority of our tanks, and I could just lob shells into them all day long, so long as their artillery was occupied. And of course, that was a gamble. You do have to make gambles at times when you're looking at just how you're going to have to deal with the fact that you have certain tanks in certain areas. Now, of course, that artillery I figured was going to be focused elsewhere, allowing me to focus on quite a few other things myself. Now, that T-34 did come back around to try and stop us, but I already had positioning on him. He didn't take a shot against me, which he should have, or he missed, which was more likely the case. Of course, again, coming to the fact that, if you look, I have right near full hit points, and all their heavy tanks, all their tier 8s, all their tier 7s, are either heavily damaged or about to be outnumbered in the fact that they cannot go against myself, plus our other low pressing from the valley over here. So our platoon was able to really hold out, playing well to our strengths and our advantage here of course, I don't want to say using the lesser tiers, but more or less taking advantage of the fact that we can snipe over top of them or that they can actually go and brawl while we sit there and don't take nearly as much damage, letting us be more able to contend in the end, getting us the win. So it's kind of a rough spot. It's a lot of people have to be willing to understand that that's their role and they're going to get sacrificed that way. But if you're going for a victory for the team, brawling head to head, tier 9, crushing into the lines, it isn't going to work out so well anymore now that the tier 10 stuff is out for mediums and TDs, because they will stop your big super heavy tier 10 crushing against the front lines every time. So a lot of it comes down to now having your team really cooperate, knowing your terrain to get around to the weak soft spots on these super huge, very damaging tanks. And of course, as I said before, working in your team to your strengths and weaknesses there to either group together, platoon together, wolf pack together, whatever it takes to try and pool your resources to make things work. So as he gets finished off, we'll go into one more battle. Hopefully this has all been making sense to y'all to try and help you guys increase your chances of winning just ever so slightly.
Let's go.
So to wrap it all up, I want to show you guys the potential alpha strike power, the teamwork, and just the simple sheer might of running together with a platoon all combined into one game. We have 3 T-30s all platooned together, all going the same direction, all with their heaviest weaponry, and the alpha damage on these tanks is right below 3,000, upwards of 3,000, minimum of 2,000. That is enough to level any tank if all combined together. And that's exactly what we're going to try and do, is the fact that we're going to all work together, all put our firepower together, just to eliminate tank by tank anything that comes our way. We have the firepower, we have the personnel, it's all possible. Now, lucky shots happen just like that. One shot from our T-30 levels their Object 704. But, in the chance that you aren't so lucky, we do have the simple firepower of all 3 of us combined, being able to just level tanks left and right. People will leave areas because we have such sheer firepower on one area, and that will actually cause every tank in this area to pretty much pull away, or will pull everybody to us, thus either causing a weak flank on our part or weak flank on another part because they're so worried about our side. Now, of course, we are a rather weak group because of the simple fact that the T-30 is so easily penetrated, but just the damage output that we have is just massive, and we can level every tank here. Now, I have to actually carefully aim here and bounce off, but it's just amazing the sheer damage that each group can wield. Now, lucky hits here and there, as you see, kind of take us out. We're all down, hurting pretty bad, and it's simply because that our choice of tank is a high damage tank, but a very fragile tank. And as a platoon, as you can see here, we've shared all the damage the best we can, and there's not a lot we can do about preventing us from getting damaged, but we certainly are able to make it so that we can at least spread the damage out. We're able to communicate saying that, hey, I'm on reload, or hey, I've taken a hit, so I need to back up, so on and so forth, just to prevent us from getting rocked. Now, sadly, I cannot save Kurgan here because his turret and gun were in the way. I was trying to get him to move it, but just not in enough time for me to be able to level that shot and take out the M4043. So sadly, he gets aced, but it's a minor issue in the simple fact we still have 2 T-30s, which is more than enough firepower to take care of things. Now, we do have things kind of rushing back around our hill because they know that they can outflank us, but just still the devastating firepower that we have. The only thing that stands up against us is this E-75, and he's already whittled down that one shot from either of us will kill him. Now, he's actually kind of backed in a corner where he sits right now, and Vaughn and I are going to actually squeak up just a bit so that we can fire against him. And now, neither of us have a shot against the soft spot until now, when he actually pulls away and starts to look at another tank. And we were able to just squeeze in there and get him. Now, while it doesn't look like we got a lot of kills here, 5 kills between us and our T-30s, and actually dictating the battlefield based on the fact that we have just so much firepower on our one end and just so much damage, actually kind of dictates just how the other enemy team plays. Because no one in their right mind, unless they are all working together and know how to play against this, wants to go against the firepower of 3 T-30s all working together and platooning, because they know that if you inch out and make one wrong move, or even don't even make one wrong move, just 3 people who know where to aim at weak spots, how to properly cover each other, and how to use our reloads and terrain, no one wants to risk it against that because they know that they'll get killed off. So, I want to thank you all for tuning into this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned some things as to how to improve your chances. Really comes down to working with your team and platooning. I cannot stress that enough, that communication is absolutely essential. You cannot operate on your own. Cannot run ahead and rush at stuff. You need to operate with at least 1 or 2 tanks to be able, other tanks to be able to do such things. And so, hopefully this helps improve your chance at winning games. Platooning and communication certainly are key no matter what game you're looking at. I mean, that goes true for Call of Duty, Battlefield, World of Tanks, PlanetSide. I mean, you name it, it's all about communication and teamwork. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream that I did last week. I'll edit together highlights and put that up here on YouTube soon. And I'll also be contacting the winners of the little giveaway that I was doing. It's basically just a mousepad and calendar that World of Tanks or Wargaming was giving out. So, I'll contact them and send that stuff off. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.